Let me introduce our guest on the Four Outdoorsman, Buck Benson, retired radio guy, northern Minnesota fellow forever. To hear that you're retired and then at your age of retirement deciding to take on the mountains of Nepal is pretty impressive, Buck, and that's why we've got you on the Four Outdoorsmen. You've got a blog, I believe, at buckbenson.org of your travels through Nepal. Was this year?
I just got back about a month ago, and I should say that although I'm retired from the radio station, I still am operating my hardware store here in town.
Okay, right, exactly. Everybody knows the hardware store in Grand
on the right-hand side. You're head through town there. It's
Can't miss it. I always seem to go right past. What's that cafe I like to eat at up there?
Gunflint Tavern.
Gunflint Tavern. Yeah, the girls and I like to eat there. Exactly. So I've been going through your blog, and of course you're a friend and adventure mate of Lonnie Dupree, who we've had on the Four Outdoorsmen prior. Now, was Lonnie part of this expedition as well?
He was the focal point of the expedition. It was his expedition. Lonnie and I climbed Denali together in 2010, and then I'm sure you know about his 4 attempts to climb it solo in January that came after that, and we've been friends for 25 years, I guess, and we've done a lot of little expeditions together.
Yeah, Lonnie lives in Grand Marais, right by you someplace. I know you've been friends for a long time. Let's back it up a little bit, because you've been. How do you get involved in this? I know you've been in the Grand Marais most of your life, but the people who don't know Buck Benson. He's been around a long time, loves the outdoors. He's been doing tons of adventurous things over the years. You know, he's run 50-mile runs a number of times. He's biked 6,800 miles in 4.5 months over across South America. He's kayaked partially around Greenland. He's done lots of things. Well, how does this start? How does a young guy who was born and raised in I think you were born and raised in Grand Marais or someplace in that area, how does this start?
Well, I've always liked to be outdoors, and I've always liked challenges, and I don't know, you start doing a few things here and there, and you're in with people who also enjoy doing similar things, and I guess that's how the progression starts. I started running long distances just because my friends were running, and I enjoyed it, and I found that it suited my body type to run long distances, and that's how that worked. And the climbing all began, I think, with a trip to Africa to visit a buddy of mine who was volunteering in Africa, and we ended up climbing Kilimanjaro just because we were there, and that got me interested in climbing. So I don't know that there's any specific thing. It's just the way your life evolves.
Well, and there's something internal. It's not about being in the right spot at the right time or having the right friends. There's something internal because, most Minnesotans in the winter run off to Mexico for a week. We go to Vegas for a long weekend. But your sense of adventure was much broader than that. I have a feeling you're not the kind of guy that would have ever been satisfied for a weekend in Cabo laying on the beach all week sipping Mai Tais.
Well, you're right about that, and I got to say that I really think some of this is genetic. I was just I just like to move, where other people may have a different makeup, but for me, that's when I'm happiest, is when I'm moving, and no better way to move than bike the length of South America, or
that's moving.
That's moving. And our guest, Buck Benson, we're talking about his adventures with Lonnie Dupree. Through the years, we're moving our way towards Nepal, but I understand that. I mean, I'm a guy that I'm a thinner, scrawny, some might say, fella in my day. But I grew up on a farm, and I would get bored and go run the section line. And most people know that that's 4 square miles. And it wasn't around a track. It was fields, and you jump over some fences and run through some creeks. And I just found something. I ran the 2-mile in track. I had an aptitude for endurance. And I also like to go out and hike. I'm a avid mountain skier. I don't tackle the big stuff like you guys do, but I love to get out, and I love to put the skins on the skis and hike up it and ski down and take yurt trips out in the backcountry. But I have friends that want to do it.
Yeah.
Bigger guys, or more portly gentlemen, stocky guys that just, don't have as good a time out there. They're working a little, not that they can't, but they work a little bit harder. And there is something about just wanting to be able to move and being able to move gracefully, being able to run and have a lot of endurance that makes these things a lot more enjoyable, obviously.
Yeah, and anytime you exercise, of course, the chemicals are flowing and you feel better, and there's instant rewards that way. But also, in many other ways, as you travel, there's the culture part that you pick up from people.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of other benefits to that kind of thing. But the pure climbing or pure running, I think you're right. It's just. In some people, it's genetic, I think.
You're talking about trying to be in condition to do the things that Buck Benson is doing. Buck is a good friend of mine, and Zepp has met him, Ron Cunningham, from my office, and they've been friends for many, many years. And Ron Cunningham and I were training to go do the Grand Canyon thing down, 6 hours, stay down there for a couple of days, and 9 hours back up in a couple of days. And so he came up to see you about a month and a half ago, and he comes up there regularly to spend some time with Buck and sees Lonnie once in a while. And you took him for a hike someplace, and Ron Cunningham had been working out literally for about months getting ready for this Grand Canyon thing.
Yeah.
He damn near died. He couldn't, honest to God, I saw him the next morning in the office. He couldn't believe that you were in that much better shape than he at about the same age. He damn near died. He said, I don't know how Buck does this all the time, but there's something there, and you taught him a big lesson. It's not just
the Grand Marais Death March.
Oh, I'll tell you, I don't know what kind of hill it was, but Cunningham wasn't comfortable.
Ron's a great guy, and he did a wonderful job in the Grand Canyon. It's no picnic to go up, especially going down.
Yeah, it was a bitch.
In the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of muscle strength to be able to do that, and resilience, and so that he thinks that I ran him into the ground. That's not exactly right. But we did take a hike up Lookout Mountain, which is near Cascade River, one of my favorite places to run, and in this case we were hiking. I guess I always stay in shape because it's part of my lifestyle.
But are you still running regularly? I mean, I'm reading something from your blog where it says the last time you completed your last Superior 50-mile trail race a couple of years back, you finally said, okay, it's time to get on my bike. I mean, how are your knees after running so long? How are your knees?
My knees are still great. I don't have any problem. I'm lucky that way, but I had a little ski accident. In fact, I was doing some backcountry skiing, like you were mentioning a couple of minutes ago, and took a bad spill. And since that time, my lower back doesn't feel happy when I'm anything after like 16, 17 miles of running. Then it starts to bug me. So that's why I took up biking.
Well, it makes a lot of sense to me. I've had a chance to ride a bike across the state of Iowa. Ron and of course, I get Ron involved in all kinds of things. We've gone now the Grand Canyon. I got him to go skydiving, which he wasn't happy with, and I also got him to do the 500-mile ride across the state of Iowa, which is a lot of fun as well. But it's a lot better than running for me as well. I'm only 5'7", 148 pounds. And my knees are not as good as I couldn't do it anymore. Biking's the name of the game for me. Hey, let's talk a little bit about Nepal. Now, tell us how you and Lonnie ended up getting. Let's talk about the Tenzing Peak. I understand I don't know exactly where it is, but this is a mountain. This is a peak that has just been opened for climbing, right?
Yeah, there's a. I think it was in 2014 they opened a lot of area up to. Basically up to foreigners.
You're talking about they. Who opens it up?
Is it the Nepalese government?
All right, okay.
Because they've kept some of their area as wilderness, more or less, as we would do here. They just have a different term for it. And because of all the pressures on some of the mountains that are open, there's so many people trying to climb these mountains. It's getting crowded. They opened up more area, and some of these mountains have been sacred mountains, and that's why they weren't open before. And Tenzing happens to be one of 104 significant mountains that are now open. And by significant, Tenzing Peak it's almost 8,000 meters. It's 7916 meters, which is just 29 feet lower than 26,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a very significant peak. It's next to Choyu, which is just to the left of it, and it's in Nakambu, which is where Everest is, and all the other, most of the 8,000 meter peaks are located. There's 14 of them. So it's a major mountain, and the focus of this trip that we took was to hike into, create a base camp below Tenzing Peak, and take a real close look at it and see if it's climbable.
And what did you find out?
Well, we determined that it isn't climbable,
Oh.
at least not from the in our minds anyway, from the Nepali side. It might be climbable from the Tibetan side, but there was ice falls down near the bottom. There were a lot of avalanche-prone areas on the mountain, and up on the ridge where Lonnie intended to go, there were cornices, and it just didn't look safe in any way. So decided that there has to be another peak there worth climbing, and I believe, of course, the name Tenzing is what caught Lonnie's attention.
Right.
Named after Tenzing Norgay, the famous Sherpa.
For Edmund Hillary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, first on Everest.
Our guest, Buck Benson, talking about his adventure with Lonnie Dupree in Nepal and his blog at BuckBenson.org. Buck, now, this has got, I would think, for climbing enthusiasts, for nuts, this has got to be quite a deal to open up 100 peaks or somewhere in that area, and peaks like this that were unavailable to climbers before. I mean, Everest has been so climbed that it's been attacked at every different direction. It's a well-known, as a climber, what you get. There's a lot of documentation, obviously a lot of history, and a lot of people are part of those camps that are going up. But these new peaks, you're getting, people are looking at them for the first time like, can we climb this? That's I would think that people would be flocking there to be the first one to climb some of these mountains.
Yeah, I'm sure it's getting a lot of mountaineers' attentions. Of course, there's a lot of work that has to go in to do most of them because they haven't been climbed and
Right.
the areas around them haven't been traveled. There's a lot of logistics to figure out, how do I get there? Am I going to be able to get in the supplies that I need? How do you approach the mountain? There's just many things to think about.
That's really, for you and Lonnie to be out there looking at a peak like Tenzing at 26,000 feet is pretty gutsy.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear in this interview that I was not going to attempt
Right.
that peak.
Yeah.
But that was something that Lonnie and our climbing friend Elias Martos, he's a Spaniard, and he and his wife Bridget were also along on this expedition, and they are professional, or he is a professional mountaineer. That's what he does, and his wife is just really strong on the mountains. So they make a great team. They were also a big part of the whole time we were in Nepal.
I think the dedication and the commitment it takes to even consider such an endeavor, because it's got to take months for you to prepare for anything like this, whether it's Tenzing, whether it's for Everest, or anything else that you and Lonnie have done or Lonnie plans on doing. I think of the commitment not only for time but financially.
Yeah,
it's quite that's overbearing to me. I just can't understand that.
Well, it's an expensive sport, or can be, depending on where you're going and what you're doing. And especially, something like Everest, you're going to pay $40,000-$50,000 just to make the attempt. But on these new mountains, it's still expensive to get to Nepal, to line up porters, to just about every step of the way adds up, and it may take several trips to get it done. So it's a big commitment in time and money and effort, but the rewards are there. So people are looking to do these things.
Did you and Lonnie do something recently? Maybe I read it. Maybe I misread it. That where you had to have Sherpas help you as well, and both you guys kind of did not finish the trek. Am I correct? Or in the last year or so?
No.
Have you ever worked with Sherpas?
This was my first time that I haven't had to carry all of my stuff.
Okay.
And it feels a little funny at first that, hey, this guy over here is carrying, probably half of your weight that you need to bring, but it's how these people make a living, and to say, hey, I'm not going to hire porters, I'm not going to hire guides. That's the reason that they open these areas to climbing is to create tourism and to create money for them.
Let's talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, Stu, I want to talk a bit about his blog and your travels there. I want to congratulate you on that because as I read through it, and I haven't been all the way through, BuckBenson, by the way, .org, as I read through it, it's a very good account of your travels, but also the people there, and you weave in some of their customs, and it really gave me much more of a sense of Nepal than I had really ever had before. And I know you were there post, obviously, there here in 2015, the earthquake devastation that had hit that region as well. Talk a little bit about your travels and the people in Nepal. First of all, Buck, had you been to Nepal before?
No, this was my first trip, and I just felt very fortunate that Lonnie invites me along, and especially Nepal because it was an area that I hadn't given any thought to going. And then, of course, comes this invitation, and you can't say no. We only come around once, so you're going to go. And I think the first thing that was unique about the area that we were in is that there's no cars, there's no roads, there's no trucks, there's no taxis, there's no infrastructure like that. So everything has to be carried as you travel from village to village. And it can be carried on ponies, it could be yaks. The yaks do their work in the high altitudes where it's cooler, and the mules are the ones that work on lower elevations, and in between those two, they've managed to breed yaks with cows and come up with a half-breed animal that can take a little more heat than the yaks can.
That's interesting.
But most of the stuff is carried by people, and if you can imagine having to trek these they're really mountain trails, and they're steep and they're rugged, and you don't want to go off the side. It's a long way down. It's very impressive. So it's work, and it makes more of a democratic society in the way that you look at things, because you can't just buy your way. You have to carry your stuff too. You have to walk the same paths. You stop and talk to everybody, regardless of whether they own a bunch of businesses or if they're just a porter carrying their loads. It's really kind of cool to see people that are basically all doing the same thing.
When you were staying in Nepal, how long would it take you to get from where you were staying to, let's say you started to climb and try to accomplish Tenzing Peak? How far away is that? How would you get there, and how long would that take before you even started the climb?
Well, yeah, that was a difficult approach to that one, and we landed in Kathmandu, which is in a deep valley, and it's lower elevation. It's hot there, but it's a big city and smoggy. And we got on it's not big planes. They're like 12-passenger planes to get to a place called Lukla. It's about a 50-minute flight or so to Lukla, which is at 10,000 feet. And that's where we took off on our trek. So I think it took us 2 days to get to Namche Bazaar, which is kind of a hub point. You can go in a bunch of different directions from there. And none of these are big. I mean, Namche Bazaar is not a big town by any means. It's small, and all of those villages are. And after we left Nampshi, let's see, it was 2 days before we started before you could start to hike into our objective.
I might be able to make it the first 2 days to the bottom. That's about it.
Yeah, how'd you do with the altitude there? Because, I mean, every place is, I think when I go out and I get up to 14,000 feet in places like Colorado or Montana.
Hypoxia, is that hypoxia territory?
Well, it just takes me some acclimation. A good 24 hours up there moving around, and I'm doing a little huffing and puffing, getting everything into whatever unloaded and loaded up. But you're considerably higher at that before. I mean, just even at base elevations, I'm guessing you're at 14,000 feet or higher.
Yeah, 14,000. There aren't any 15,000 foot peaks in Colorado.
Right.
The highest ones are 14 something,
right.
And that was a lower altitude for us because we were going from there up to Gokyo-ri, which is 16.5 or something, and then from there you move up to base camp at about between 17 and 18,000.
Wow.
For
it's getting thin up there.
Peak.
Yeah.
And I've been fortunate through the years, and it's a genetic thing, to do well in high elevations. So that's helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing that I train for or do anything particular, other than take Diamox. Is the only other thing I do, and try to stay in shape. So I do okay in high altitudes, and so that trek took maybe 4 days to get up. Maybe it was 5 because we took a day in Nampshi, but actual movement to 16.5. That worked. That was okay.
You pull a muscle up there, you're screwed. I'm telling you, what do you do? What do you do if you get hurt up there? You're
pay
screwed.
Another $20 a day to carry you back down, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you really get hurt badly and you can't be moved on a mule or a yak, then you'd have to hire a helicopter.
This conversation reminds me of a song from the 1960s. You're not a kid anymore.
I want to really encourage our listeners to go to BuckBenson.org and read through this. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to go through each one of the highlights and the people and the customs and through your travels, but it makes for a great read. Curl up with the laptop. As we have to sort of wrap it up here, Buck. As we wrap it up, is there something you would like people to know about your trip to Nepal that really kind of stuck out for you or that you didn't expect on the trip?
Well, I would say it's the people, and the way their lifestyle is, the closeness between families and friends, how well they work together, and I think it's not really a religion, Buddhism. It's a way of life, and I think it shows in these people, and it's something to admire and to look at.
Well, thank you, Buck. And
what a privilege. Yeah.
BuckBenson.org, because guess what? We're not going there.
Nope.
This isn't one of those, hey, Buck laid it out. I think I'm going to, I'm going to buy a better pair of hiking shoes. So it's fun to read along and to sort of dream along on something like this. So, Buck, thanks for taking the time. Congratulations on your travels, and we can't wait to talk to you after your next adventure.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me on.
Get back to the hardware store, my friend.
Okay, I'm off.
Somebody's been waiting at the counter for an awful long time.
Thanks, Buck. Take care of yourself.
Yeah.